Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm Suzanne Monroe, founder of the International Association of Wellness Professionals, where I've been teaching people how to live a life of wellness, tap into their passion, and go for their dreams for over 15 years. I believe living well and dreaming big starts with ourselves. This podcast will show you how to create a healthy, holistic life, empower your mindset, follow your dreams, and make a big impact. Let's dive in right now. Welcome back to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm your host, Suzanne Monroe, and it's time for another soul session. So excited to be here with you for this soul session. It's a time to kind of get centered, get grounded, and just check in with yourself. And today I want to share with you about personal principles. This is something that has really helped me and guided me on my path. And I want to share with you about my personal principles and help you to kind of define yours. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But this recently came up because I was interviewed on another podcast and the host asked me, what was it that I've done on my journey to kind of get to where I am now, to create a career and a life that I love and really, carve my own path. And of course, there's many things that I did on this path and this journey, right? But one of the most important things I did was to get very clear on what I call my personal principles and get connected to them. So what are personal principles? Well, quite simply, they're just the things that you care deeply about. Like what is most important to you? If you were to sit down, carve out a little time for yourself, which I highly recommend doing, and just really think about the core things that are just most important to you in life, what words would come to mind? Right? And this is really important because we really oftentimes don't do this. We might know what our personal principles are, or we might be totally out of touch with them. But no matter what, even if we know our personal principles, if we're not really staying in touch with them, we're not living our life from that place. And oftentimes life can feel really chaotic and can feel like we're really, just out of alignment, right? Back to this whole alignment focus. So personal principles are really important. And when I sat down to get clear about my personal principles, it really helped guide me to get on the path to creating a life I desire. So I've got lots of personal principles. I'm going to share with you just 3 of them today and kind of walk you through one of them that I think is super important on this path. But my top 3 personal principles are wellness, family, and sovereignty. Okay, wellness because, my whole life is about holistic wellness, super important to me. My family, super important to me. My husband and my son, just love them so much, right? And sovereignty, what does this mean? Sovereignty is one of my most important personal principles. And sovereignty, you think of kings and queens, they were called sovereigns. Okay, what does that mean really? They had self-sovereignty, right? They had sovereignty over themselves. And it's such an important word because it's all about us having not just personal freedom, right? But personal freedom based on what's most important to us. So it ties right back to our personal principles. But it's really the ability to listen to yourself, to listen to your own truth, and then take action from there. Because in this life that we're living, this busy, fast-paced life, there's a lot of voices out there, right? And too often we're listening to all those other voices. And that's what's really driving our day and really driving everything that we do, whether it's the voices on social media or just the voices of our friends and family or the voices in our head, right? Or the voices in our past from all of our upbringing or our beliefs that are really driving everything we do. And really what's most important is our personal principles and taking action from these places that are super important to us. And that can happen when you have a personal principle of sovereignty, which means that you believe that you have an inner truth, and that inner truth is the most important truth of all. And it's being willing to listen to that inner knowing, that inner voice, and take action from there, even though it might feel kind of scary. And so that's what sovereignty means. I'm just embodying this right now. I've kind of carried around with me for many years now as I've, really tapped into creating my own personal freedom and lifestyle. But the sovereignty is just a word that I keep coming back to because, again, in today's world with all the voices out there, we can easily forget to come back to ourselves and what matters most. So I think this is really important. And I'll say this about personal principles also, is that we're oftentimes just running around with not being in touch with our values, right? And then what happens is when we have to make choices on a daily basis, Should I, stay after work for an important meeting, or should I go to my kids', baseball game or whatever it is? Sometimes we are in such conflict about what we should be doing. And no matter what we're doing, we feel guilt or regret about the thing that we're not doing. I don't know if you can relate to that, right? But when we know what our personal principles are, we can tap into those and remember those. So if our personal principle is is family, and that's really important to us, then we can make that choice and say, that's why I'm making that choice today, right? Or for me, with one of my personal principles of wellness, right? If there's something related to wellness, which covers a lot of areas, maybe I'm going to lose out on some family time, but I know it's really important for me to do some self-care or take care of myself in a wellness related area, then I don't have to feel guilty about that, because that's part of my personal principle and my vision. So sovereignty, again, is one of my big personal principles. And I just want to say, I think it's really important, because if we can listen to ourselves and take action from there, the most amazing things can happen, and we can really create the biggest impact, even though probably right now you're hearing that and you maybe don't believe it. But if you give it a try, you'll see what happens. And the reason I say this is because I've seen it happen over and over again for myself and for other people as well. Because what's happening is you're creating from spirit, not just from ego. So right now our minds only have so much potential, and we feel like we have to control everything that's happening. But if we can let go of that and tap into this greater inner knowing, that's when the most amazing things can happen. And I'll say, the things that I've created that have been the most amazing in my life are things that, I did not really create from that physical egoic level. I really had to tap into my inner truth, which reminds me why sovereignty is so important, and coming back to that on a daily basis. So let's do a quick alignment check and check in with you. If you're thinking about sovereignty right now after this discussion, what is important to you? What's holding you back from listening to your own inner truth? Are you buying into any beliefs about you not being able to listen to your truth or create whatever it is you desire? What would you choose for your life if you were really listening to yourself and living from a place of sovereignty? Right? What would you do differently than what you're doing now? And really, what are your personal principles that you want to tap into and help you to guide your life? All right, that's our soul session for today. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you back for another episode soon. Bye. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Live Well, Dream Big. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and I want to invite you to take your next step toward living well and dreaming big by downloading the Live Well, Dream Big lifestyle book. It's the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. You can grab your complimentary copy by going to the link in the show notes or heading directly to iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide. That's iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide.